Today we're going to talk about section 533 on the nervous system. So our objectives today will be to describe the three main parts of a neuron and explain their functions, differentiate between the central and peripheral nervous systems, identify the three major parts of the brain and discuss their functions, and name some diseases of the nervous system. So two major divisions of the nervous system are the central nervous system, which includes the brain and the spinal cord. So we see that in these pictures here, the brain and the spinal cord. And this is the command center that constantly monitors conditions to keep the body operating well. The peripheral nervous system includes the nerves and sensory receptors, so it's everything outside of the brain and spinal cord. So it's on the periphery. We call things on the outside of the periphery. In fact, on your computer, we call all of the attachments peripherals. So they're like the attachments, the microphone, the mouse, the monitor, all of those things are peripherals on your computer, and so that's where we also get this word from, periphery, on the side. Also, we get the word peripheral vision for the vision that's off to the side. And this part of the nervous system continually sends information to the brain. Now, the nervous system is made up of neurons. These are nerve cells, and let's take a look at that structure. So this is a diagram of a neuron, and the first part is the axon. This is the long extension of the neuron that transmits messages. So this is the axon, and there are two ways that messages are sent through and between neurons. And when the message goes down a neuron, it's actually an electrical impulse. So you have electrical impulses traveling through your body along this axon. And around the axon is myelin, and this is an insulating cover that surrounds axons because your axon is a lot like a wire, and electrical wires also require insulation so they don't touch and become short-circuited. At the end of a neuron is what is called the dendrite, and these are the short branched extensions of a neuron that receives messages from other cells. So this is the dendrite, and it receives messages from other cells at these points here. And the kind of message it receives is actually a chemical message. And that happens across the synapse. This is the gap between the axons of one neuron and the dendrites of another neuron. So this axon goes to an end and sends that impulse across the synapse as chemicals, neurotransmitters, that then go to the dendrites of another neuron, and then that message gets sent along the axon as an electrical impulse, and so on and so forth. So the parts of the brain. The first part of the brain is the brainstem. That is this part down here. It controls reflexes, respiration, heartbeat, and swallowing. So a lot of things you really do not think about are controlled by the brainstem. The cerebellum is this part right here. It's involved in balance, maintaining muscle tone, and coordination of muscle movement. So again, some things you don't think a whole lot about, but you do have some control over your muscle movement. So that is the cerebellum. And then the cerebrum. And the cerebrum controls, this is this part that looks kind of like a walnut. It controls thinking, other voluntary acts, detects sounds, smells, sight, taste, pain, heat, and cold. So a lot of your senses, a lot of your voluntary things that you do that you have control of. So some diseases of the nervous system include multiple sclerosis. A lot of times we shorten it to MS. And MS involves this myelin sheath around the axon. What happens is this myelin sheath deteriorates, and so there's no insulation, and so that electrical impulse kind of fizzles out and gets short-circuited a bit. It just does not travel efficiently down the axon anymore. And so that causes people with multiple sclerosis to have many difficulties to where they can not control their muscles eventually anymore. Epilepsy is in the brain, and what it is it's extra activity in the brain that shouldn't be there, and so neurons will just fire and cause an individual with epilepsy to have a seizure. And finally, Alzheimer's, which probably many of you are familiar with. It causes memory issues, and eventually it also causes the individual to lose function of moving muscles and even eventually breathing. So, and you can see over here is a normal brain. This is the brain of somebody with Alzheimer's. So you can see that it just deteriorates that brain. They have a lot fewer neurons. There are these deposits called plaques and different things in the brain that also disrupt the function of the brain, causing that memory loss and then loss of control of the body. So our objectives were to describe the three main parts of a neuron and explain their functions, differentiate between the central and peripheral nervous systems, and identify the three major parts of the brain and discuss their functions, and name some diseases of the nervous system. So don't forget your 5 questions in your notes and keep watching this video to answer the questions at the end.